Today, we're going to speculate on some 12-month predictions. I've got 5 of them as of right this second that I want to share with you today. The first one of these is that I think that Harry is going to spend the entire book trying to figure out a way out of marrying Lara Wraith, just to figure out by the end he actually wants to. But because he wants to, it's not going to happen. And there's going to be some kind of crazy, chaotic reason aside from Jim Butcher liking to just pummel Harry and take everything away from him and just beat him into submission with every single book in this series. And the reason that I think that I think it's very plausible that he's going to obviously be trying to get out of this arranged marriage. It's arranged. It wasn't his idea. He doesn't want to do it. He's terrified of Lara. He probably is terrified of Lara, right? They go back and forth. But I think that, and I talked about this in a previous episode on this podcast about how the two of them actually do work really well together. And there actually could be something very compelling about having those two team up in a more regular fashion, or I guess even a more romantic fashion, if you will. Well, you would, because it's a marriage, I guess. I guess you will. So some of the reasons for that, and for this, it's less about the actual physical attraction part. This is less about the potential romantic storyline. It's more about the fact that these two actually do make incredibly astute, poignant, effective allies when they team up, and having the pair of them team up more often and in a more organized fashion, and not have this. They always have this sort of like the necessary, I guess, like song and dance that they have to go through every single time they come together, where it's like, oh, we're actually enemies. Oh, we're going to throw some threats at each other because, oh, we're both dangerous to each other. And, you're bad and I'm righteous and whatever else. But it never holds any water at all or has any actual bearing on the plot or the story that's taking place. Usually it's a couple of back and forth quibbles, and then they realize that it's in their best interest to work together, and they give themselves their little truce, and we're working together just through this, and then we'll go back to hating each other after this, and then the next time they have to come together, well, we're going to work together for this, and then we'll go back to hating each other after this. And I think at some point in time, we just have to come to the realization that these two don't actually hate each other, and they actually just work together really well. And so seeing the benefit of that could be something that happens for him over the course of the 12 months that it's spanning, up to their arranged nuptials. And I think it's plenty of time for Harry to have some kind of a realization that, like, oh, this would actually potentially be good. And of course, then they can also have some kind of, because there is a physical attraction, obviously. So you can work that in as well. I'm not the romance writer. Not really my bag. But that's why I think that he will ultimately, I think that's the foundation of which you can build upon, having him actually want to be aligned with her more directly. And then again, because Jim Butcher takes everything away from Harry Dresden, he's going to take away that allyship in some form or fashion. I don't know if it'll be tied to them finally getting Thomas out, or maybe they can't save Thomas, and that's the straw that breaks the camel's back, I guess, for the old metaphor. Maybe that's where Lara, finally loses it and snaps, because she almost snapped when he put him in there in the first place because of that communication issue, all that stuff that we have already seen. So that's my thoughts, I guess, on theory prediction number one for the book, and I'm interested to see where they take that, because it could be very, very compelling, and obviously they're going to spend a lot of time on it because we've got our arbitrary deadline. So the second prediction, I guess I keep calling these predictions, really they're guesses, let's be real, is that Harry's going to reveal some kind of plan that he had to thwart the Black Council that involved getting himself removed from the White Council on purpose. Now, with this, and I've seen some people speculating about this on TikTok. By the way, my TikTok has been awesome here lately since I started making videos about Dresden Files. Somehow the algorithm has found the fans of Dresden and they are flocking to my TikTok, and I am just stoked about it because every time I post about this series and this character, I get a lot of great discussion in the comments, and that's literally what I do it for. So, some of that has pointed out people with theories that Carlos has been Harry's inside man within the council this whole time, and that him being the one to investigate him being the one to actually tell him he's been exiled from the White Council has all been kind of part of the plan to get Harry out of there and have Ramirez on the inside as his mole. So I think that could be something that we see as part of that plan. But even if it's not, I think that there's going to be some kind of underlined plan that Harry has, that he needed to be separated from the White Council, out of the I guess, like, removed from the political nature of being a part of the White Council in order to properly investigate the Black Council's uh, infiltration of the White Council in the first place. And so I think that that's going to be revealed somewhere in 12 months. I don't know that I don't think it'll be culminated. I don't think we'll get a resolution to that whole story arc within 12 months, but I do think that there is going to be some kind of a reveal towards that. Like, yeah, I had to get myself removed so that I can investigate them in this way. I can go more on offense and not have to be constantly playing defense within the walls. I think Ebenezer, as a part of that whole thing, was not in on Harry's plan to get himself removed, and he's going to be super pissed when he finds out about it, but he will ultimately be supportive once he gets over his hatred for the White Court and Harry's attachment to them. But I think that particular part is going to take longer than the 12 months book. I think it's going to take multiple books for that to actually get a resolution, especially with the whole Harry's engaged to Lara part of this whole thing. Like, I don't think Ebenezer is going to be able to get over that shit. So his part in that is going to extend beyond this book and going to be like a future thing that gets resolved within that. But again, I think it's all part of that Black Council story plot and Harry's investigation into them, or his intention to bring them down, and he had to get himself taken out of the White Council in order to do his plan for that. The third prediction that I have is that Harry is going to learn what Starborn means, and he's also going to learn within that all the people he trusted or has relied upon have kept that from him as some part of a plan to use him, or at least to gratify their own ends, a means for their own agenda, if you will. And I think that some of those are going to be like Ebenezer, who I mentioned a second ago. His agenda is going to be like out of love for Harry and thinking that he knows best for Harry, and he's doing it because he doesn't want to. He wants to protect Harry and thinks that he knows, better than he does. That's how we've seen him treat pretty much everything else. That's why he let Harry be an orphan without telling him he was his own grandfather. That's why he wanted Harry to get rid of Maggie. That's why he didn't actually raise Harry's mom until she actually showed power, and he became more like her mentor, if you will. And they changed her name. Like she wasn't uh, Maggie McCoy. She was Maggie LeFay. All part of this whole like secrecy and the way that Ebenezer seems to work in terms of the way that he protects the people that he cares about. He does it all through secrecy and all through separation from them and separation of them from the truth. He hasn't told Harry almost anything about his mother. Almost nothing. Even after Harry figured out that his mother was McCoy's daughter. They still have barely talked about her. He's literally told him almost nothing. All secrecy with McCoy. And so I think that's essentially his agenda with the Starborn thing. I think the Merlin is in on this. I think the Merlin doesn't want Harry to know about what being Starborn means because he's trying to protect his own power and interests from what Harry could become, whether that be taking over the White Council in some way, or being an adversary to the White Council in some way, or just taking down the Merlin because we haven't cleared the Merlin from being corrupt. There's multiple layers to that, and we know that the Merlin hates Harry, like, a lot. And so I think this is part of why he hates Harry and why he and others within the council have been treating Harry as so dangerous and like such a what's that? What am I thinking about? Like a bomb just ready to explode or whatever. I can't think of the analogy that I'm trying to go for in this moment. But I think that's going to be his angle in this whole thing. I think his godmother knows, and she probably made some kind of promise to his mother not to tell him, and or to, again, protect him in some way. And so I think we might get something throughout this year between him and his godmother to give him a little bit more information about his mother. Because obviously she's the one that gave birth to him, and this whole being Starborn thing is tied to the exact moment of his birth. So I think there's got to be some kind of exploration that we're still owed on Harry's mom, and I think that could be a cool way to get there. And I think that there's going to be others that are involved with that as well, and that kind of parlays into the prediction number 4, because I think that the reveal of what being Starborn means is going to bring bigger characters into the story than the ones that we know from Harry's normal circle and the ones that we've actually encountered so far. Because For Listens to Wind, who is an incredibly high-ranking and powerful wizard within this world, right, can do a lot of crazy shit, knows a lot of information, and has been alive for a long ass time. If it was just about him getting permission from the Merlin to tell Harry what the hell's going on, he wouldn't need a year to get the clearance that he needs to do that from just the Merlin. There's got to be more to it than that. I mean, I don't know, could like Uriel be part of this? Could Odin be part of this? Perhaps. Maybe I know we know that Mab knows as well, and she hasn't told me either. Maybe it's a collective of like supernatural powers that somehow like govern this thing that, and she's a part of it. Again, I didn't mention earlier what her angle is. Her angle on not telling Harry is she wants to use him and it like as a weapon in her own wars, whether that be against the outsiders, whether that be against like other powers like the White Council, for instance. Like, I think her motive is fairly straightforward, at least in my mind on that. But she could be part of this like supernatural governing body over this type of information. But I kind of think that it's even bigger than that, because that suggests that they have more a more cordial like relationship among all those different supernatural powers, and we've seen a lot of evidence to the contrary. They were able to come together during peace talks to like come together and fight in Battleground, I guess. But it's no, they don't really. They're not chumming it up a whole lot, and they all have their conflicting agendas. So the idea that it's just that collection of people that we already know seems iffy to me. So I think it's going to be like, I think it's going to be the introduction of some kind of like new, even more powerful being to this world, because at this point we've faced a literal titan. And unless Jim Butcher completely shifts gears, I have to assume that the power within this series is going to continue to escalate the way that it has so far. But who that power actually belongs to at this point, I'm not sure I could even guess. Like, we're talking about the circumstance of somebody's birth, like the exact moment and like the destiny or like prophetic nature accompanying that birth and the exact moment that it happened, and it only happens every what, several hundred years. Are we talking like Zeus level god? Are we talking with a capital G? Like, what are we really talking about as far as the next level that this could even go to? And on top of that, the only other Starborn we actually know of and have met in the series, at least that I can recall, or that has been revealed to this point, is Dracul. If he's Starborn, does that give us any clues as to like who is governing the information? Could it somehow be tied to the vampires? Is that maybe another part, another layer as to why Ebenezer hates them so much? I don't know. I feel like it can't just be a vampire thing, right? Because why would Listens to Wind need to parlay with the vampires to get permission to tell Harry what it means that he's Starborn? And what does vampires have to do with being protected, I guess, against like the outsiders and being able to fight them? Like, I don't know. That all doesn't reconcile in my pea brain. So I'm not sure that it has a whole lot of bearing, but I do think that it is. I think it is going to be a vehicle to the next escalation of power within the series. The last prediction that I have about 12 months is a little bit. Would this be a way to say? Is this what meta actually means? Not like Instagram and Facebook, but the actual term meta, the real word. Like, because I think that the new novella Outlaw that was announced that you can pre-order at this moment for like May, I think it's a little bit of like a spoiler hint, because it comes out obviously after 12 months, and I think that being titled Outlaw suggests that at the end of 12 months, Harry is going to be an outlaw. And how is he not already an outlaw? He already got removed from the White Council. So I have a couple of thoughts as to how he gets there. One could be that he either breaks one of the laws of magic in order to get through whatever he has to get through in 12 months, which would leave him as a fugitive, an outlaw of the White Council, because they're the governing body over the laws of magic. So he could do that. Or he could actually manage to break himself free of the Winter Mantle putting him outside of Mab's law and Winter's law, in addition to the White Council's law. And so, because he's now been broken away from the White Council and broken away from Winter, like, he's completely on his own and outside, and probably has people gunning for him from all factions of, power and governance within this world. And so it literally makes him an outlaw from everybody. Granted, I have seen some people speculating on in like my comment section in TikTok that the way that he's going to break free from Winter is by getting with Lara and having her demon feed on the Winter Mantle and ultimately kill the Winter Mantle. And that's how he's going to be released from Mab's influence over him, which I do think is an interesting theory and thought process to go through. And if there's a good time to do that, it might be during 12 months when the two of them are in this forced courtship. So maybe that could be where we're heading. I'm not 100% sure that I'm fully committed to that, but I think it's telling. Again, you can't say that you're releasing a novella that you can already pre-order called Outlaw and not come to the conclusion that whatever happens in 12 months, it's going to leave Harry as a proverbial outlaw, obviously. So it's where this fun speculation is, again, in between. How does he get there, and what do we truly mean by outlaw? Because this entire series, Harry has comported himself like an outlaw. He's been the outsider in all of his situations, all the way from book one, whether that was when he had the Doom of Damocles over his head, whether that was him being a wizard openly in Chicago where everybody thinks he's an absolute nutcase. He's an outlaw from the police department that is totally fine with using him in investigations, but also has no problem believing that he's the one that did it and is guilty, and throwing him in jail and calling him a charlatan the entire time that they're using his expertise. You've got the White Council who, even after lifting the Doom of Damocles off of him, has treated him as if he's just a rogue sorcerer who's full of black magic and just a ticking time bomb, who has an agenda to take down their whole way of life the whole time. He's always been treated as a threat within his own actual, wizarding organization. He's been literally an outlaw in terms of being suspected of portraying like murders, and he's been on the run from the real law and magical law, and now he's the Winter Knight, and that's pretty much an outlaw position. Like that's kind of the whole gig. And so I think that outlaw is an interesting use of phrase, I guess, for that next novella, to think like, how is that different than what Harry has been this whole time? And 12 months is where we're going to find out what makes that different than what we've seen this whole time. What do you think? Which of these predictions do you think is most likely to actually hit? Do you have any of your own? Let me know in the comment section. If you enjoyed this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are watching on YouTube. I was trying to hit 700 subscribers by Christmas, and I think we're going to fall short unless I get a whole lot of your help right now.